The name rolls through him, not into his ears but directly into his soul. It shakes him more deeply than the screech of tires, steadies him more completely than any comfort he has ever known. The light is not neutral. It loves him, it knows him, and it claims him. The main emotion tightening around him is awe, terrifying awe, the kind that makes you want to bow even when you have no knees left to bend. Every instinct says to resist, to cling to the familiar world of pavement and breath and heartbeat. But resistance crumbles in the face of that authority. You are drawn. You lean forward. You cannot help it. He looks back once. Paramedics kneel over his body, voices sharp with urgency. One presses his chest, another calls out numbers. Their words are muffled, as though he is hearing them through thick glass. It is strange. He knows they are fighting for him, but he is not there. That shell is no longer home. He feels pity for them, for the futility of their battle. And then his gaze shifts. Across the distance of miles, his spirit sees into his mother's kitchen. She has just dropped a plate into the sink, her hands trembling as water splashes. Her body folds with a grief she cannot name, tears streaming down her face. She doesn't know why, but something deep in her soul has recognized the truth. Her son is gone. Ethan aches with a sorrow too heavy to carry. He wants to run to her, to hold her, to tell her he is alive in a way she cannot yet imagine. But he has no legs to run, no arms to wrap around her. All he has is the pull of the light, and it is stronger than longing. The tidbit of knowledge rises inside him with sudden clarity. When the body fails, the soul does not drift into silence. It sharpens. It perceives what it never noticed, feels what it never confessed, and answers when eternity calls. The light grows closer. It no longer looks like a glow at the edge of vision. It has depth now, dimension, like a doorway cut into the fabric of the air. Around it swirls a tunnel of living color, as though music itself has taken shape. He feels himself sliding forward, faster than any bicycle, faster than wind across fields. He passes into it. Sound envelopes him, not of shouts or sirens, but of voices, singing, layered with meaning beyond language. Every note is a truth, every harmony a promise. The music enters him like water filling cracks in stone, healing what he didn't know was broken. Yet not everything in the tunnel is light. Out of the corners, beyond the walls of color, shapes slither. Shadows with twisted outlines, some human, some not. Watch him. Their presence drips with bitterness, cold and cruel. Hatred radiates from them. They want him. He feels their pull, their whispers, the malice of powers that hate the light. His chest clenches with a fear sharper than the crash itself. He remembers words from childhood, half-forgotten Sunday school lessons. There is a war for every soul. Now he sees it. Now he knows it is real. But the light ahead grows brighter. The voices in song rise higher, wrapping him like a shield. The shadows hiss and recoil, unable to break through. He presses forward, pulled as if by gravity toward the center of it all. He realizes this. Death is not silence. It is a crossing. And the one who calls him knows every moment of his life, every sin, every mocking word, every time he turned away. Yet still the call continues. Still the light waits. The awe deepens, fear mingles with longing, and Ethan surrenders to the pull. Ahead, the tunnel opens wide. The journey is about to reveal its end. The tunnel stretches ahead, swirling with colors that pulse like living veins of fire and water. Ethan feels himself pulled faster, yet there is no wind, no strain, only motion, smooth and irresistible. Around him, the voices rise in song, cascading notes layered with meaning his mind cannot hold, but his soul understands. Each tone carries warmth, truth, mercy, and it seeps into him like sunlight thawing frozen ground. But not all is song. Beyond the walls of light, faint shapes drift and twist. At first they seem like smudges, shadows without form. Then they sharpen, faces that flicker between human and something else, creatures that defy description. Their eyes burn with envy and fury. They reach, but cannot cross into the stream of living light where Ethan moves. The main emotion coursing through him is fear. Not the kind that scatters, but the kind that freezes every thought. The realization that these beings are real, that evil is not a metaphor, but a presence. Their whispers seep into him, not with sound, but with suggestion. You don't belong there. Turn back. You wasted your life. Your hours. He remembers childhood words, spoken by a Sunday school teacher he barely listened to. There is a war for every soul. Now the truth presses against him like cold iron. The war is not distant, not invisible. He is in the middle of it. But the tidbit of knowledge also surfaces. The light is stronger. Always stronger. Each time a shadow presses near, the glow ahead intensifies. and the voices swell louder, weaving around him like a fortress. He realizes that even here, beyond the veil of death, the name of Jesus is the dividing line, the power that keeps the darkness from claiming him. The tunnel bends, and the music sharpens. He sees the end ahead, a brilliance so intense it drowns the shadows. His soul leans toward it the way a starving man leans toward bread. The shapes retreat, hissing, their hatred muted by distance. He feels them fall away as the light engulfs him. Then, suddenly, he is standing, not with legs, not with the weight of flesh, but with presence. Ground stretches beneath him, yet it is alive, pulsing with energy as though even the soil breathes with God's life. His senses, whatever they are now, flood with awareness sharper than any moment on earth. Ahead, a figure approaches. At first, it is only radiance, a form of brilliance brighter than the sun, yet gentle enough not to blind him. As it draws near, it takes shape. Ethan trembles, his soul bowing though he cannot force it. He knows without introduction, without explanation. It is Jesus. His presence is overwhelming, terrifying, and tender at once. Ethan feels every sin, every prideful thought, every mocking word rise to the surface like stains under pure light. He wants to hide, but there is nowhere to run. Jesus' eyes pierce him, oceans of justice and mercy joined in one gaze. They see everything, yet within them is not rejection. What he feels instead unravels him. Love. Love so pure, so holy, it exposes and heals in the same instant. Ethan collapses inwardly, undone by truth. He cannot speak. His mouth, if he even has one, will not form words. His soul kneels, stripped of all defenses. He is nothing, and yet he is wanted. The figure shines brighter, light alive and flowing, every motion saturated with authority. Jesus is before him, and Ethan knows his journey has only just begun. He stands before the living light, and everything in him knows. This is the center, the source, the one he has mocked and longed for in the same uneasy breath. Ethan does not walk toward him. He is already held. The ground beneath, if ground is even the word, thrums like a heartbeat, warm as sun on a winter window, steady as a drum heard through a wall. The radiance takes shape. It is not a torch, not a star, not an angel. It is a person whose presence makes sight into understanding and sound into meaning. You feel your jaw unclench. Let your breath fall low and quiet. Blink once slow. The space itself seems to ask for reverence. A face resolves not by lines first, but by gaze. Eyes like depths. Mercy without softness, justice without cruelty. Draw Ethan to the truth the way a tide draws a leaf to shore. He wants to hide, but where could he go? There are no corners here, no shadows to crouch in, because nothing about this light is hostile, it is honest. Under that honesty, excuses split like reeds. He sees his sarcasm, his practiced shrugs, the easy laugh he used to throw at faith like a pebble at a window, hoping never to be invited in. He expects a verdict. What happens instead undoes him. Love lands on him like warm rain. Not permissive, not indulgent, cleansing. It exposes and heals in the same movement. Shame tries to curl him inward, but the love is faster. It reaches the center before shame can finish its slump. Ethan's will melts into surrender that feels like finally breathing. The main emotion of this moment is reverence. Holy awe that steadies rather than scatters. It holds the spine straight and the heart open. You can feel it in your shoulders as they drop. Let them. Light moves across the figure's hands, and Ethan notices what he could never have guessed would be here in glory, wounds. Not raw, not hidden, transfigured. The marks shine like windows into a story where suffering has not been erased but rewritten. The realization arrives whole. Victory does not deny the wound. It carries it through to meaning. That small tidbit folds into his understanding and will not leave. Glory can keep the memory of pain without the sting. Communication begins, but not with syllables. In this country, meaning moves faster than words. A knowing passes between them and lands inside Ethan like a bell tone. He is known, completely. He is loved, personally. He is not a statistic lost in an ocean of souls. The one before him has been near through every season. When he skipped church and called it freedom, when he laughed at believers and called it courage, when he felt alone and called it normal. Every moment is available here as if time were a room with every door open. A fragrance rises, clean rain on stone, bread just broken, something like wool warmed by sun. He cannot place it because it is not smell only, it is welcome. The music he heard in the tunnel is still here, no longer a chorus behind a veil, but a presence saturating everything, like air that carries harmony as easily as oxygen. Ethan's thoughts don't tumble. They arrive as clear as water poured into a glass. He knows what he wants to say, and also knows he does not need to speak. Nothing in him is hidden. The habit of hiding, half-truths, jokes that sidestep admission, the flinch that avoids apology, has nowhere to stand. The light reads him without reading him, the way a morning reads a room, touching every surface without asking permission. If there were malice here, exposure would be unbearable. Because there is only love, exposure is relief. Let your gaze soften. In through the nose for 4, rest for 2, out for 6. The rhythm here is gentle on purpose. He becomes aware of the texture underfoot, a surface that gives like earth after rain and yet holds like stone. Each step, though he is not stepping, feels received, as though the place itself is glad he stands there. The very environment seems to be relationship rather than material. He thinks of science class words, electromagnetism, spectrum, wavelength, and knows those words would not be offended here. They would simply be incomplete. Light is not just energy in this place. Light is someone. The gaze does not waver. Ethan waits for accusation and receives insight instead. He recognizes how he used humor to avoid tenderness, how he called apathy maturity, how he mistook noise for courage. Seeing it does not crush him. It releases him from the project of defending himself. Defense is heavy. Love takes the weight by refusing to negotiate. A warmth touches the place where a shoulder would be. No pressure, no push. Permission. The effect is immediate. Memories align like books finally shelved in the right order. The afternoon he lied to avoid a consequence. The night he scrolled past a friend's quiet despair. The morning he told his mother he was fine and folded instead into himself all day. Each memory is surrounded by an invitation he never noticed at the time. Small tugs toward patience, honesty, kindness. They were him being sought. He sees that now. The seeking did not stop when he refused to answer. Another tidbit settles. In this presence, you cannot perform. Performance needs an audience that can be manipulated by angles and echo. Here, there are no angles, and nothing echoes falsely. A thing is either true or it is not. The relief in that is astonishing. Ethan senses an arc forming, not like a lecture to be endured, but like a path unfolding under his feet. First the meeting, then the seeing. The seeing will be not for humiliation, but for healing. He understands, with a certainty that requires no oath, that what he is about to witness will be the full story of his life, told by love. He does not brace. Bracing is for impact. He opens. Opening is for surgery. You can rest your tongue on the roof of your mouth. Let your hands loosen in your lap. The quiet here is active, like hands that hold a rope steady while another climbs. The light brightens a fraction, and the place around them widens without expanding, the way a heart can hold both sorrow and joy and be larger for it. Ethan sees how small his version of a good life was. Good grades, enough friends, not getting caught, staying out of serious trouble. He had drawn a map to a cul-de-sac and called it the world. Before him now is the real country, vast and intimate. The awe that began as trembling matures into trust. He recognizes identity as something given rather than assembled. In a flash of steady understanding, he knows himself as a son, wanted before he believed, pursued before he asked, held before he held back. That truth does not make him special in a way that diminishes anyone else. It makes him family in a way that invites everyone. There is a hint of commissioning at the edges of the moment, not the weight of duty but the lift of purpose. It will come, he can feel it. But the order is mercy first, mission second. Before he is sent to speak, he will be taught to see. The light inclines, not with motion only but with intention. Around them the air gathers into clarity the way a pond clarifies after wind. Images not yet formed. Only the sense of a story about to run in honest light. Ethan does not fear it. He welcomes it. If this is judgment, it is the kind that heals by telling the truth in a way the soul can bear, because love is holding the edges. A last gentle rhythm for your breath. In slow, hold like a pause before a word you mean, out even slower than you think you can. The living light does not speak in sentences, yet Ethan receives the message entire. The time to hide is over. The time to see has arrived. His life will open like a book, not to condemn, but to free. And when the pages have turned, when love and truth have done their work, another vision will lift him beyond his own story, to a warning meant for a nation and a world that have forgotten how to listen. The air brightens around Ethan as if the room of light inhales. The space does not change, yet everything in it becomes more precise. Edges crisp, colors deep, meanings unhidden. He senses the moment approaching the way you sense thunder before the sound, pressure gathering in a cloudless sky. The living light does not accuse. The living light reveals. The first scene opens without fanfare. A kitchen morning. Cereal boxes, a chipped mug, sunlight angling across a tired table. Ethan sits with a backpack slumped at his feet, phone hidden under his palm. His mother asks how he slept. His answer is fine, a word tossed like a coin to avoid the cost of truth. Here, in this country where nothing is muffled, intention and impact separate like oil and water. He watches his fine land like a door closing. His mother's face holds steady, but inside her a small ache blooms, the ache of not knowing her son. In the light, Ethan feels her ache as if it were his own. The knowledge arrives gentle and immovable. Love is wounded by absence long before it is wounded by conflict. Let your shoulders loosen. Breathe in softly through your nose. Let the exhale be twice as long. A school hallway unfurls. The blue of lockers, the chemical clean smell, the racket of voices cascading toward a bell. A classmate lingers at the edge of a crowd, a girl whose laugh has grown rare since a parent left. He remembers the day as ordinary. The light shows it whole. He misses the look she gave him, a request wrapped in shyness. He answers it with a joke that invites others to laugh. The crowd laughs. She looks at the floor. In the scene, he feels her moment from the inside. The sting of being noticed for the wrong reason. The quiet vow to become invisible. He tastes it. The flavor is metal, like biting a coin. Contrition rises through him, warm and sharp. It is not shame that curls and hides. It is sorrow that stands still in the open and admits the wound it made. This is the main emotion of the long, bright sequence. Contrition that does not collapse. Contrition that agrees with truth because love is holding the room together. Another scene. A parking lot at dusk, air smelling of cut grass and motor oil. A friend talks too fast about a fear he cannot name. Ethan hears the noise and misses the need. He changes the subject. The light does not shout. It simply lets him stand in the weight of what might have been, in the tenderness he refused to try. Refusal has a texture, slick in the moment, abrasive forever. He feels both. He expects the real to fixate on obvious failures. It does not. It lingers on the small neglects. The promise to help that drifted away, the text unanswered, the remark that turned a person into a punchline, the quiet bitterness nursed like a pet. He had called these neutral. The light teaches him vocabulary he never learned. Omissions are decisions with footprints. Set your jaw down from your ears. Let your tongue rest on the roof of your mouth. Inhale like you're smelling rain. Then come the fragile moments of goodness, small, bright threads he almost forgot. A sandwich half for a classmate who had none. A night he stayed after practice to pick up equipment no one owned. A Saturday he read to his little cousin with voices until the child fell asleep, smiling. Each small mercy blooms here like a flower that remembers spring regardless of frost. He feels the relief those choices gave to others, relief traveling like warmth through cold muscles. He learns that kindness does not vanish. It multiplies in directions you cannot see from Earth. The tidbit of information lands with the clarity of a tolling bell. In this review, you don't only recall your actions, you experience their weight in others. Every yes and every no is a seed that grew in the soil of someone else's heart. Eternity makes you feel both the planting and the harvest. He sees himself in church as a boy, eyes rolling, jokes ready. The light shows the older volunteer who taught him anyway, praying over the names between Sundays, bringing snacks bought from a pension that should have been saved. Ethan feels the patience that took, the love hidden behind the tired smile. He watches himself mock it, then feels the slight grief of the one who stayed faithful. Grief here is not a weapon. It is testimony. It says this is what it cost to love you, and I paid it gladly. He watches the crash again. Metal, motion, the sudden Sabbath of silence. Not to traumatize, but to locate. This is where time stopped keeping score by seconds and began counting by truth. He sees paramedics working, sweat at a temple, a prayer half formed in one of their minds though no one hears it. He feels the prayer, quiet as bread broken in a corner. The light holds that prayer like treasure. A new current moves through the scenes. Not destiny, not doom, but purpose. Moments he thought random are revealed as invitations. Sometimes he accepted, often he declined. The invitations were not chores, they were doors. Behind each door stood a person, and behind the person stood the one now holding him, the one who had hidden himself in those faces, waiting to be welcomed. He expects the light to tally and pronounce. Instead, the light embraces and instructs. Ethan understands with a relief that weakens his knees. The review is not designed to humiliate, it is designed to heal. Surgery, not spectacle. The scalpel is truth, the anesthesia is love. Let the breath fall slow again. 4 in, hold for 2, 6 out. Feel the chair. Let gravity be a friend. Time here folds like linen. A summer day stacks against a winter evening, and both are present without crowding. The review is not a line. It is a landscape, and he is guided through it by the same presence whose scars shine like promises kept. He asks nothing with words, yet answers arrive. Why did I resist? Because fear dressed up as independence. Why did I mock? Because intimacy frightened him, and ridicule kept it away. Why did I hurry? Because emptiness chased him, and speed made it feel far behind. None of this is offered as excuse. It is diagnosis. Treatment follows. The treatment begins with consent. He says yes without syllables, a yes that is posture more than speech, and the light pours through him like warm water through cold hands. Memories untangle. Resentments release. He is not required to prove sincerity. He is invited to surrender control. He does, and relief storms him, softly, like a tide that refuses to harm the sand it lifts. He sees his mother again. The morning aches, the evenings of prayer she never advertised. He is allowed to feel her love for him from her side of the bond. 1,000 ordinary sacrifices, none of which were ordinary at all. Gratitude floods him so quickly, he almost cannot bear it. Gratitude here is not politeness. It is sight restored. He whispers thank you without sound, and the words become a light thread that ties him to the people he wounded and the people who loved him anyway. The review slows. The last images are simple. A door opened for a stranger whose hands were full. A trash can write it in wind. A message answered at midnight because someone sounded brittle. Small things. River stones. They form a path he never saw while walking. He sees it now, and he understands what the light is teaching. A life is braided from moments most people think are forgettable. Heaven forgets nothing done in love. Contrition and relief settle into each other like two notes that make a chord. Ethan's heart stands open, unarmed. He has nothing left to defend and nothing left to hide. He is not erased. He is remade. The way a field burned in winter is not destroyed but prepared. The brightness eases, not dimmer, just closer, as if the light has stepped within the distance that remained. Ethan knows the review is complete. He also knows this was only the first work. Having healed his sight backward, love will soon turn his face forward. What he will be shown next will not be his story alone, but a warning for a people who have confused spectacle with truth and noise with hope. He does not seek it. He does not shrink from it. He waits inside the mercy that made him able to see. The brightness that healed his past tilts forward like a compass needle finding north, and Ethan senses elevation. Not up the way a balloon ascends, but up the way insight rises. The scene unfurls beneath him until continents look like living canvases and oceans breathe like lungs. You feel your shoulders slide down from your ears. Let your breath fall low, quiet, and even. The world is suddenly both vast and intimate. Every city a pulse, every farmhouse a candle, every screen a tiny river of attention. He notices darkness first, and learns it is not the absence of light, but the presence of something that hates it. It coils over certain places, thick as storm banks that never rain. It lingers above domes and towers where power speaks into microphones. It drifts along fiber and satellite, slipping into pockets and palms, reshaping attention one swipe at a time. Where the darkness touches, patience thins, suspicion fattens, and mercy dries at the edges. He recognizes it in meetings behind doors and in bedrooms lit by cold blue glow. The scale scares him, but the presence beside him steadies him with a calm that feels like a mountain. The main emotion that grips him is urgency, not panic, that scatters. This urgency collects, clarifies, insists that the moment for half-heartedness has ended. You sense it too, like a clock you cannot see but can hear in your chest. Across the map, he sees lights that don't behave like electricity. Some spring from sanctuaries where a handful sing with cracked voices. More rise from kitchens and porches, from the bedside of a sick parent, from a prison bunk where a name is whispered into the dark. Each light stitches a thread across a neighborhood, and the darkness recoils, not dramatically but decisively, the way fog steps back from the first clean heat of morning. He is drawn over a great land, he knows by the shape of its rivers and coasts. In government halls, he sees anxiety dressed up as certainty. In newsrooms, he sees speed crowned as virtue while nuance waits in the lobby. In classrooms, he sees questions that deserve patient companions hustled into slogans with tidy endings. In churches, he sees two temptations trading pulpits. One wraps faith around flags and forgets the kingdom is not built by votes. The other wraps faith around applause and forgets holiness still means something. The darkness loves both whenever they are louder than love. A tidbit of information lands in him like a key turning. Darkness is parasitic. It has no light of its own. It only occupies what is abandoned. Where prayer leaves, noise moves in. Where truth is neglected, spin becomes king. Where fellowship grows thin, contempt sets the table. The remedy is not outrage, it is return. He watches words travel faster than thought. A claim leaps a continent in 10 minutes and roots a grievance by nightfall. He watches a rumor sell more than a retraction ever will. He watches a snide laugh earn more attention than a patient answer. He sees algorithms, human-made, profit-shaped, reward the spike and punish the slow work of peacemaking. But he also sees the places those currents fail to reach. A circle of chairs in a church basement where phones stay face down. A dinner table where scripture is read aloud and the family's breathing syncs with a psalm. A shop where an owner pays fair wages quietly and prays for the names on the schedule. In these small embassies of another kingdom, the air is different. Jesus does not speak in sentences, yet meaning pours into Ethan with the steadiness of rain into good soil. Prepare, but do not hoard. Repent, and then repair the small broken things right in front of you. Make your living room a lighthouse. Teach your tongue gentleness and your hands readiness. Store rice if you must, but store mercy first. The shaking that approaches will test foundations, not pantries. Ethan sees the shaking as pressure waves, invisible yet real, moving through markets, courts, and friendships. Contracts tremble. Friend groups crack along opinions that have been elevated to religions. The poor feel it first, the way they always do. Hours cut, prices up, options down. The comfortable feel it last, and assume the early tremors are exaggerations. In many places, leaders promise calm and self-control. The bargain looks sensible when fear rises. Every trade of conscience for quiet makes the darkness grin. You soften your jaw. Breathe in for 4, hold for 2, out for 6. The counsel here is not theatrical. It is ordinary, and that is why it works. He has shown what holds when other things shake. Mornings that begin with surrender keep their shape at noon. Families that have learned to apologize can endure a hard disagreement without turning into enemies. Churches that pray more than they post can carry a community when the grid gets noisy or goes dark. Businesses run by people who fear God more than margin become shelters in storms. These are not slogans. He sees the outcomes. A teenager learns to hear the shepherd's voice because his parents turned off the flood of other voices for an hour each evening and made space for quiet. A widow finds groceries on her porch because a Bible study kept a list of phone numbers and needs. A deputy prays before a volatile call and de-escalates what could have been a headline. The map shimmers, and Ethan is guided across oceans. The same darkness nests in different languages. In one country, it hides in nationalism. In another, an ideology so abstract it forgets the human body eating and sleeping and dying. In port cities, he sees containers moving with goods and also with temptations labeled harmless. In rural valleys, he sees despair poured into bottles that whisper relief and deliver chains. He sees that the human heart, north, south, east, west, has the same hinge, and whoever owns that hinge owns the door. The hinge is worship, the door is allegiance. Urgency tightens again, and yet peace keeps threading through it. The peace is not that everything will be easy. It is that nothing will be wasted for those who belong to the one whose scars shine. Ethan understands the assignment that is coming. It will be public, and it will be costly. He is not being trained to predict dates or entertain the curious. He is being prepared to call people home while there is a door left to walk through. He notices places where the darkness is thinnest, always where humility sits in the chief seat. A mayor who admits he does not know and asks pastors to pray rather than to pose in photographs. A principal who gives a teacher time to breathe instead of another spreadsheet to fill. A nurse who hums an old hymn while taping a line and, without knowing it, shifts the spiritual weather in the room. Small acts lower the tide of dread because small acts are love wearing work clothes. Another tidbit settles. Fear lowers discernment. Prayer raises it. When people are frightened, they buy whatever calms their nerves fastest. When people have prayed, they can wait long enough to recognize a counterfeit. The coming months will separate these two like oil and water. From high above, Ethan sees lines being drawn that are deeper than politics and older than parties. The lines run through living rooms and hearts. He knows the next vision will narrow the camera from the map to a single moment, a hinge where the consequences of long habits meet an opportunity for mercy. The presence beside him does not rush. It never rushes. It simply brings him to the threshold and steadies his breathing the way a father steadies a child before the first dive. You feel your spine lengthen, your eyes soften. The air in your room seems quieter for a heartbeat. The world below is restless. The invitation above is gentle and firm. Prepare in faith, not in frenzy. Repair the altar at home. Choose truth over speed. Refuse the bait. Practice hope until it becomes muscle memory. The map dims like a screen set down on a table. Shapes pull into focus closer to the ground. A plaza, flags, a crowd moving like a weather system, cameras waiting like open mouths. Ethan understands without words that the lens is about to tighten. The shaking will have a face now, a day and an hour people will argue about, while the deeper invitation stands open. He rests where he is placed, urgent and calm at once, ready to watch and, later, ready to speak. The map of the world folds away like parchment, and Ethan is brought low into a single place. A plaza stretching wide, flags snapping in a sharp wind, cameras waiting like hungry mouths. The crowd churns with sound, cheers of devotion braided with jeers of contempt. It is not one emotion, but many currents colliding, a storm that has learned how to wear a human face. Ethan feels his spirit tighten. The main emotion pressing on him is dread. Dread not of spectacle, but of consequence. He knows instinctively that this is a hinge moment, a point history will not walk past but turn upon. He watches as a man steps forward to the podium. The face is familiar, etched in headlines and arguments. His presence carries both confidence and controversy. The plaza seems to hold its breath as he raises his hand to speak. Ethan sees not just the man but the currents swirling around him. Hopes, fears, anger, loyalty, all braided into a tension stretched too tight to hold. The words begin, amplified across stone walls and carried into microphones. Some hear them as promise. Others hear them as threat. For a brief moment, Ethan wonders if the crowd will settle, if the storm might calm. But the air hums with danger, and electricity too heavy to ignore. Then it happens. A flash from the edge of the crowd. A sharp crack that splits the air. Time slows to a crawl. The man jerks backward, his body folding as chaos erupts. Screams slice through the plaza. Security lunges forward. People drop, scatter, shout. Flags whip like warnings in the wind. Cameras tilt wildly, capturing fragments of panic. Ethan trembles. He does not want to watch, but the vision holds him. He sees the shooter slip into the confusion, a shadow swallowed by frenzy. The scene blurs, shifting to a hospital, lights flashing, voices urgent, hands pressing against wounds. Machines scream numbers. Lives hang on the edge. Then the vision swings back to the streets, where news spreads like wildfire. Cities flare with unrest. Some gather in mourning, others in rage, still others in twisted celebration. Marches turn to riots. Windows shatter. Fires lick the night. Leaders speak from podiums, calling for unity with voices that tremble with calculation. Some see opportunity in the chaos. Others see only fear. The tidbit of knowledge presses into Ethan's spirit. Violence against one man can open doors for many spirits. The moment is not about politics alone. It is about what hearts will reveal when the shaking strips away pretense. He feels Jesus beside him, sorrow etched deeper than anger. This moment will open doors that have long been prepared. Some will run to me. Others will harden. Truth will be costly. Lies will multiply. The enemy will press his advantage. Ethan sees laws written in the name of safety, but carrying hidden chains. He sees freedoms eroding quietly at first, then boldly. He sees suspicion rise like smoke, neighbors turning on neighbors, trust dissolving in whispers and screens. And yet, he also sees light. Small homes where Bibles open on kitchen tables. Families kneeling in dim rooms, whispering prayers that pierce the darkness. Small circles of believers gathering quietly, encouraging one another to stand. These are not grand, but they burn brighter than riots, more enduring than speeches. Dread still grips him, but hope threads through it. For even in the storm, the faithful shine like lanterns. And the presence whispers steady in his soul. Do not fear those who can kill the body but cannot touch the soul. Fear only the one who holds eternity. Ethan knows he must remember every detail, for this vision is not given to satisfy curiosity, but to awaken the sleeping. The shaking has begun. The lines are being drawn. The division is no longer theory. It is lived, breathed, shouted, and burned into the streets. The vision tilts again, lifting him above borders and oceans. Nations stir, armies prepare, whispers turn into treaties and threats. He feels the gravity of something larger forming. What comes next is not only about one land, but the world. The camera of heaven pulls back and widens until coastlines curve like the edges of a bowl, and Ethan hangs with the presence over a turning world. Seas sheen like hammered metal under cloud bands. Deserts glow like banked embers. Nightside cities sparkle in constellations the sky never made. The hush here is not empty. It is listening. You can feel that listening in your own chest. Slow your breath. Let your shoulders drift down, and notice the way quiet begins to cradle your thoughts. Movement stirs at the edges of continents. Ships nose through straits with lights dimmed, hulls heavy with secrets. Jets draw chalk lines across high air, then vanish into weather. Satellites wink like cautious eyes. On the ground, crowds form in squares where fountains throw silver. Voices stacked in chant and counterchant. Banners lift, then tear, then lift again. The air of the age smells of heated stone, diesel, and the acid tang of fear. The main emotion pressing on Ethan is foreboding. Not panic, not spectacle, but the sober awareness that something long arranged is beginning to show its shape. The presence beside him steadies that foreboding until it becomes watchfulness. You can borrow that steadying now. Unclench your jaw, let your tongue rest against the roof of your mouth, and breathe out longer than you breathed in. Regions sharpen. In one ancient city, streets knot with processions, faces bright with hope and hard with grievance, flags rippling beneath walls older than any modern slogan. Behind doors where maps lie open under desk lamps, hands trace lines with a finger, then with a pen, then with a promise that sounds like prudence and tastes like ambition. Across a vast plain, factories hum through the night, stamping metal with serial numbers that pretend to be tools. On a coastline where fog holds to cliffs like wool, clustered antennas lift their spines as if listening for orders not yet spoken aloud. Ethan sees the same pattern in different languages. Leaders trade certainty like a currency. Peoples trade fatigue for outrage because it feels like energy. Agreements are made that bind the average person more tightly than the makers who sign them. Alliances harden, then shift, then harden again. The world is a chessboard that forgot it holds families, not pieces. In a glass hall of applauding delegates, a figure rises who seems to collect the room without effort. The suit fits, the voice carries, the eyes promise recognition more than policy. He speaks of peace with the cadence of relief itself, an ease that makes muscles loosen and wallets open. He frames restraint as cowardice and control as compassion, always just enough compassion to make the control taste sweet. Nations lean toward him the way tired men lean toward chairs. Media call him what they always call such timing, inevitable. Markets exhale. Pundits edit yesterday. Even opponents feel themselves wanting to be impressed. Ethan's attention is pulled past the applause to the shadow that trails the man's steps. The shadow does not flicker. It is steady, cold, precise, a geometry of will that knows what it wants. Allegiance without question, unity without conscience, worship without a cross. The figure is not cartoonish, not crude. He refracts. He appears in rooms as exactly what each room desires most: stability to the anxious, vision to the bored, justice to the angry, belonging to the lonely. He feeds appetites while at the same time teaching them to forget the taste of truth. A tidbit of information settles into Ethan with the clarity of a bell. Deception does not begin by demanding denial of God. It begins by offering relief faster than repentance. The test is simple and old. Measure the voice by its fruit and by the word that does not change when moods do. If a message asks you to trade conscience for calm, you are buying chains. You feel that sentence land like a small weight in the palm. Turn it over. Walk it around the room of your mind. Take one slow sip of air and let it out even slower. Across oceans, the figure appears on screens in clinics and cafes, speaking comfort like a skill. He proposes a framework for speech that promises kindness and forbids conviction. He recommends a registry for safety that knows too much about where the faithful meet and what they teach their children. He assures that conscience will be respected while quietly narrowing the meaning of the word. The first time, people applaud. The fifth time, people shrug. The 10th time, they forget there was ever a larger room to breathe in. Yet the world is not unanimous. Here and there, lights thicken. In apartment kitchens above noisy avenues, small gatherings read aloud and let the words re-break their hearts in the right places. In a farmhouse where the hay still sweetens the air, a family kneels by a table nicked by decades of meals and homework and prayer, and the old song they sing settles the animals outside, as if the barn itself remembers peace. In a dorm room where walls are thin and temptations thick, 3 friends turn off the blue glow and sit in honest quiet, until courage grows like yeast in warm dough. The lights these choices make do not trend. They endure. Ethan is shown harbors where containers stack like children's blocks, their contents legal by letter and corrosive by design. He is shown labs where the dream of betterment blurs into the will to redesign the human without the humility to ask whether love is a dataset. He is shown courtrooms where law remains noble, and others where rhetoric wears law's robe to hide the thinness beneath. None of this is new. All of it is accelerating. Deception rides on exhaustion, and the age is very tired. The figure on the world stage travels. He places wreaths. He kneels where cameras will capture both humility and profile. He convenes leaders at tables shaped to symbolize unity, and the center seat fits him perfectly. When crises flare, he speaks before facts congeal, and his early interpretations become the scaffolding that later facts must climb. He never hurries. He never seems to need to. He has learned that the world gives the microphone to whoever sounds least afraid. Ethan understands that the answer is not to shout down a man. The answer is to wake a people. Awake to the voice that knows you by name. Awake to the habits that make deception fail. Fellowship, scripture, sacraments, generosity, fasting from outrage, hospitality to the inconvenient, courage to suffer without hate. Awake to the small altars in the home that make the big altars of idolatry look flimsy and lackluster. Foreboding does its work and passes into resolve. The presence lets Ethan see a map of resistance that is older than resistance. Families who tell the truth at tables. Churches that bless without bartering. Workers who keep their word when no one is watching. Neighbors who share without posting. Martyrs who bleed quietly in places with no cameras. Saints who choose to be forgotten by history so that heaven might remember them. The false unity of the age cannot seduce a people who already belong elsewhere. At the margins of the vision, Ethan notices persecution that arrives with a smile. Insurance dropped for reasons that sound reasonable. Permits delayed by committees that never meet. Bank accounts flagged by an algorithm that cannot explain itself to a human voice. The faithful learn new skills, gardens, mended clothes, memorized psalms, borrowed libraries. They do not despise technology. They simply refuse to be discipled by it. You can practice one small act now. Turn your face slightly from the screen toward the room you are in. Name 3 good gifts aloud or in your heart. Feel how gratitude changes the temperature of your thoughts. The figure lifts his hands on a stage framed by lights. The crowd sways with the ease of surrender. Ethan senses arc and culmination, but the presence does not let the camera close too far. The point is not to obsess over a face. The point is to train sight. When a people learn the timbre of the shepherd's voice, 1,000 counterfeits grow thin. The path ahead will ask for discernment that walks as well as it sees. Feet willing to go low, hands willing to serve, eyes willing to weep without losing focus. The world turns. The applause echoes across water and dies against mountains. The small lights do not die. They knit. They steady. They wait. The vision begins to lean toward depths below and heights above. Ethan feels both. The weight of hell's despair already witnessed, and the pull of heaven's borders still fresh in his bones. The next scenes will braid those truths together into a promise and a warning that no headline can carry and no cynic can cancel. He rests in the clean tension, vigilant and calm, and lets the presence hold him at the edge of what comes next. The vision tilts like a world on its axis, and Ethan feels the warmth of heaven recede as weight presses downward. The air thickens, gray at first, then heavy with a red glow that shifts like embers in an endless pit. The presence is still beside him, but the atmosphere here has no trace of comfort. It is despair distilled. The first sound is weeping, not the weeping that heals, but the weeping that never ends. It is joined by curses, voices raised not in sorrow alone but in rage, blaming God, blaming others, blaming themselves. The ground beneath writhes as though every step is on chains. Shadows move, not free, not at rest, but bound in the choices they forged. Ethan knows without instruction, this is hell. The main emotion cutting through him is dread, not the kind that drives you to run, but the kind that makes you ache with recognition. These souls once had mornings and laughter and chances. Now they carry regret like a second skin. He sees a man clutching dust that once was wealth, whispering numbers and deals into air that never answers. He sees a woman tracing wounds with her words, rehearsing every offense she refused to forgive. He sees leaders repeating speeches into emptiness, their applause gone, their ambition echoing back as mockery. Each soul wears its choices. No chain was given to them. Every link was forged by their own refusals. A tidbit of knowledge lands sharp. Hell is not God's delight. It was not made for people. It was prepared for the devil and his angels. But those who reject mercy follow pride into this same pit. Separation here is not imposed. It is revealed. Ethan turns, trembling. Why show me this? The presence answers with grief in every syllable of meaning. Because many live as if this place is not real. Warn them. While they breathe, the way is still open. I am the door. The vision deepens. He sees a roar rise from the far chasm, ancient malice echoing even demons' fear. The flames leap higher, but they give no warmth. They only burn without consuming. Souls cry out for another chance, but the silence that answers is final. What breaks Ethan's heart most is not the torment, but the hopelessness. Hope denied, forever. Then, as swiftly as he was drawn down, he feels the pull upward. The gray thins, the red fades, the cries echo behind. Light breaks like dawn, and air fills with clarity. He is rising toward a borderland of heaven. The contrast is almost unbearable. The despair lingers in his bones, but now hope presses against it like balm. He sees a river shining like crystal, trees lined along its banks with leaves that shimmer as if singing. He hears voices, not curses, but songs. Not rage, but laughter. People clothed in light embrace, their faces free of sorrow. No regret clings to them. No shame hunches their shoulders. The main emotion now is awe, heavier than before, but this time mingled with peace. Ethan knows this is home, the country humanity was made for, yet so many forget. Heaven is not a fable, not a symbol. It is reality. He sees Jesus walking among them, scars glowing as victory, joy spreading like a wave with every word he speaks. Welcome home. Here he learns another tidbit of truth. Heaven is not reward for the perfect. It is gift for the forgiven. No one here stands by merit, but by mercy. Every face radiant with love is a testimony of grace. Ethan weeps though tears do not fall. He longs to remain, to never leave this place. But the presence turns to him, gaze steady, and Ethan knows the journey is not finished. There is more to see, more to carry back. Hell's despair and heaven's joy will become the weight of his mission. The vision leans again, not toward escape, but toward return. He feels the earth calling him, the body waiting, the testimony forming. He braces, not for pain, but for purpose. The warmth of heaven steadies around Ethan like a cloak, then begins to loosen. Light gathers close, not to vanish but to send. He feels himself drawn downward through a tunnel narrowing like an hourglass. Music lingers as a hum in his chest, but another sound swells beneath it. The beeping of machines, the rushed voices of nurses, the scrape of shoes across hospital tile. Breath seizes his lungs. Pain punches through his ribs. Eyes snap open to sterile light. He gasps. A nurse shouts for the doctor. A hand grips his wrist, fingers searching for pulse. Another hand, trembling, clutches his own. He turns his head and sees his mother, forehead pressed against him, tears dripping into sheets. His father stands stiff, jaw set, whispering a prayer he had not spoken in years. Thank you for giving my son back. The main emotion flooding Ethan now is urgency. He knows he has not returned for his own sake. Heaven's song and hell's cry are still inside him. The visions of shaking nations, the false savior rising, the faithful glowing like lanterns, these have branded his spirit. Silence would be betrayal. He has been sent back as a witness. Days pass in haze. Doctors call his recovery inexplicable. He doesn't argue. At night, he lies awake, replaying every image, the tunnel of music, the gaze of Jesus, the cries in the pit, the harvest field where wheat and weeds separated forever. His heart aches with a fire too great to keep hidden. He asks for a Bible. A chaplain brings one. He begins with the Gospel of John. The words are alive, burning with the same light he saw in the face of Christ. He writes letters, the first to the man who struck him. From jail, the driver has sent his own, a plea for forgiveness. Ethan reads it with trembling hands. He dreams of the chains he saw in hell, chains forged by pride and rage, chains that never broke. He knows he cannot add one more link. He picks up a pen and writes back, I forgive you. May you find the same mercy I was given. Home life changes. Meals are eaten without screens. Psalms are read before dishes. Family prayers turn the kitchen table into an altar. They find a small church where Christ is preached with tears. People are not perfect, but they are family. Ethan tells his story first to them, then to youth in a drafty barn, then to anyone willing to listen. Some scoff, some dismiss him, but some lean in, eyes wide, hearts stirred. For them he speaks with even greater urgency. The tidbit of knowledge that guides him is this: preparation cannot begin when the shaking starts. By then the line will already be drawn. Faith must be chosen now, in kitchens and bedrooms, in prayer circles and small acts of mercy. He warns of the vision he saw. A leader struck, nations shaking, deception rising. He does not predict dates. He urges readiness. He teaches what Jesus told him. Seek the shepherd's voice until it becomes familiar. Forgive quickly. Keep your word. Join fellowship where you are known and corrected. Serve the poor. Live as if heaven and hell are real, because they are. One night his church invites him to speak to a larger crowd. The sanctuary fills. He tells of the crash, the tunnel, the eyes of Jesus, the plaza, the pit, the city of light. He ends with the heart of his mission. Today is mercy. Today is the day to turn. You don't need to fix yourself first. You need to bow to the one who died and rose for you. Some weep quietly. Some sit in deep thought. All hear the warning. Ethan steps down knowing his task is not to convince everyone. His task is to be faithful to the one who sent him back. The world will shift. Leaders will rise and fall. Headlines will flare and fade. But the cross stands. The tomb is empty. The king is coming. Now the story slows. The pace softens, and the edges blur like light through fog. You have walked with Ethan from a bike ride in autumn to a tunnel of song, from the gaze of Jesus to the cries of hell, from visions of shaking nations to the embrace of heaven. You have felt the urgency that drives him, the mercy that remade him, the truth that steadies him. Let the weight of it rest on you gently. Do not treat it as spectacle. It is testimony, a witness sent back for your sake. The warning is real. Darkness is coming. Deception is rising. Nations will shake. But so is the promise. Mercy is still open. Light still shines in homes of prayer. The shepherd still calls his sheep by name. If your heart trembles, let it tremble toward him. If questions rise, let them drive you not to despair but to Scripture, to prayer, to fellowship where faith is lived in love. Do not wait until the sky bruises or the streets rage. Preparation belongs to ordinary days. Set your table with gratitude. Teach your children to pray. Forgive before bitterness takes root. Love your neighbor as witness, not as performance. Heaven is not reward for the flawless, but gift for the forgiven. Hell is not myth, but consequence. And Christ is not one option among many, but the only way, the truth, and the life. If these words resonate with you, please write an amen in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and share it with at least 3 friends or family members right now. Now is your time to make a difference. Spreading this message is not only an act of love, but also a mission that Jesus himself has entrusted to you.